Hey, hashtag Speakeasy podcast listeners. It is your host, Altovise, your voice manager. I unmute the voice of women who are ready to speak up about what has kept her silent for way too long. In this episode, y'all, listen, I am excited about this episode because although I did not have the typical upbringing when it comes to family, family really means a whole lot to me. And man, it's the family that's meant to be, which is why I'm excited about this particular episode, because I have the author of A Heartbeat, the miracle of a family that was meant to be. I'm super excited to have my guest on today. Hello, Mikki. How are you?
I am fantastic. So excited to be here.
Oh my goodness, this episode is going to be so heartfelt, just in my mind. Now, listen, Speakeasy listeners, you may feel a little different about it, but I'm telling you, when it comes to family, it has definitely changed for me in many different aspects. But before we get into all of that, I want our guest to tell you a little bit about herself, and then we'll dive into today's topic.
Thank you. Yes, I am an author. I did write in A Heartbeat. But before that, I was in the Air Force. I was in real estate for what seems like forever, both in Colorado and then here. And soon to be a radio show host, talking about the very items that are in the book. So that's super exciting to share that with a lot of people. But the book was really important to write. And even though it took me 20 something years to finally do it, it is a true story. It's about my family and how they all came to be, and most importantly, my son. And like you, there's nothing normal about this family. It has been brought together through 3 generations over sometimes biology, but not always biology. Families come together. I'm just going way back. I won't tell you 100 years of stories, but my grandfather and my grandmother were married. They had my mother. Grandfather passed away. His brother, who had 4 children, his wife passed away. So these 2 people decided to get married. And all of a sudden, cousins became brothers and sisters. And it kind of continued that way. And later on, they had another baby, and then they adopted a baby. So, when I started writing this book, it was spurred on by, I wanted to write about my dad forever, because my dad came into my life when I was 12 and proved that it doesn't take biology to create a family. And then my son came along in the most unusual way. And it's a big part of why the story is about that it doesn't take biology, adoption as an alternate choice, a loving choice, and the law of attraction. Because like it or not, we're living it, and good or bad. And not everybody believes that, but it's true. And I approve. And he's 31 years old now. So it's absolute proof how he came into our lives.
I love that. And so, Speakeasy podcast listeners, you guys that have been following me for some time, parts of my background, but you also know that a few years ago, I finalized the adoption of my youngest sister. And I'm the oldest and she's the youngest. And we went through this whole battle with Department of Human Services in Philadelphia, and I'm in Maryland. So it was interstate, interpact. It was so many different things going on. We had about 5 different agencies that had to come in and out of our home. So when I think about what that really meant, like the fight that people don't see when it comes to adoption and fostering children, it is through this roof. Like, people, their minds would be blown if they saw all the things that we go through just to be able to sign that document and have it all finalized. So with that being said, what has been your most memorable moment?
Ever? The day my son was born. I mean, it always, I was in the delivery room. And so, I mean, it was, he really was, he came to us I used to tell people when I spoke that there's an organization I belonged to back then. It was Women's Council of Realtors. And that my son was literally a referral, the most expensive one I ever received. But he really was, through real estate chains, how he came into our lives. We found out about him 19 days before he was born, and we had not applied for adoption. So, so we had the baby in our arms, in my heart, in our home before we ever applied for adoption. But it's just because he came early. So, but in the delivery room that night, in a hospital where not good things were happening, it's a hospital where a lot of people who are prisoners go, or they're on welfare. 22 babies were born that night. 2 were healthy. 1 was my son. 20 were addicted to heroin or had other drug-related problems. And so here we are in a delivery room, and birth mother and I, and of course the doctor and nurses, and they kind of got caught up in what was happening here because it was a good thing. It was a good news story. And when he was born, they cleaned him up, they wrapped him up, they brought him over, and they're going, who do we give him to? And I got to tell you, Altovise, my heart just sunk, because I thought, if she's going to change her mind, let her do it now. I can't, And so I said to give him to her. So she took him in her arms and she said, hi, CJ, welcome to the world. I want you to meet your mom. And she handed him to me. And that began 3 days of crying, because every time I looked at her, I started crying. I just kept thinking, this is the most incredible gift someone can give. She wasn't a kid, and she had a daughter that was 4 that had MS. She was in an abusive situation. The guy she lived with was not my son's biological father. And she knew it was not going to be good to bring him there. In fact, she had scheduled an abortion. But typical of people sometimes in that situation, she started bleeding. She believed she miscarried, so she never went. And she didn't go to a doctor. And then a few months later, she realized that baby was still here. And she took it as a sign from God that he was giving her a chance to do something good with her life. And she stuck to that. I mean, she was very strong about it through the whole thing, and she wasn't getting a lot of support. So it was fun. It was just, how do you say thank you?
Exactly.
You just like can't.
In that moment, it's unreal, because it's like, wow, you think about it and you're looking and you're going, this is a life. This is a precious life that under other circumstances may not have been here.
No, and that's just it. He was, and we were in 2 states, like what you described. We lived in Colorado at the time, and he was born in Minnesota. Colorado at the time had the best adoption laws in the country. Minnesota had the worst. Minnesota was one of 4 states that would not recognize an independent adoption. So we had a little battle that we just kept moving forward, because in Minnesota, like social services is actually done by Lutheran services there. And our birth mother had gone to them the day she had made this decision and told them that, what I just told you, she knows this is the right thing to do. And they said, well, when the baby's born, we'll take him and we'll put him in a foster home for 6 weeks. And she said, no, you're missing the point. I want him to go home with his family day 1. She was very, very big on that bonding time, that initial bonding time. And so they said, well, that's the way we do it. And she said, fine, I'll keep the baby. And she went home, talked to her friend, who was a friend of mine, who had been telling her for years about us. And we didn't even know this. We didn't know these people were talking about us out there. And so she told her, tell me about your friend's friend. And she did. And she said, can you call her? And they did. And in fact, I was always at a realtor meeting for this whole thing. It was really bizarre. And I was that day. And so my husband got the call. And so he told her that I was away, but he would call me and have me call back. And he called me and he said, who's Carol Thompson? I said, she's my realtor friend. She used to be in Utah, now she lives in San Antonio. And he said, well, she has a friend who decided this morning to put her baby up for adoption. She wants to know if we want him. I'm going, oh my God, what? And I said, okay. So he gave me the number, and I was very, very fortunate. And, there are no coincidences in life. I really believe that. Being at this meeting, I was president of the Board of Realtors at the time, so I was a little busy. But our board attorney had told me that if we had ever considered adoption, to come to him first. Well, he happened to be at the meeting with us, and he didn't always travel with us. And so I went and found him, and he gave me the name of a friend of his who was an attorney who specialized in adoption, so much so that later on, he is the attorney that introduced the baby Jessica law, became law years later. And so I called him and I said, what do I do? And he said, just call her, and keep her calm and come see me Monday morning. Because this was a Friday and I was out of town. So we did. And I did talk to her. And actually I talked to her awkwardly. I called the phone, somebody answered the phone. I'm explaining who I am. And I'm asking for this lady named Wendy, because that's who had called me. And she said, oh, she just ran down to the laundry. She'll be right back. Can you hold on? I said, sure. So I'm holding on. And then the lady comes back and she gets on the phone, and I told her who I was. And she said, Carol's been talking about you guys forever. And I said, well, what do I do? Should I call her directly? And she said, you were just talking to her. That's who answered the phone. But she didn't know what to do either. I mean, it's new to both of us, right? So she got back on the phone. We were getting to know each other. And she said, she told me about the Lutheran services appointment. And she said, that's not what I want. I want him to go home with his family. And I said, okay, we're going to meet. I told her we did call an attorney who specializes in adoption. And so Monday we met, but then, like I told you, Minnesota had the worst laws. Colorado had the best. So the plan was to fly her to Colorado, because in Colorado, we could have terminated her rights within 24 hours. And she only had to be there 24 hours to become a resident. Great plan. But the baby didn't agree, apparently, because he decided to come early. And he was supposed to be born May 10th. And he was born April 24th. And on April 24th, I was in Washington, D.C. for yet another real estate meeting. And my husband called, and he says that Sharon, that was her name, just called and said her water broke. Now, my husband was a property manager and real estate investor for years. So his immediate reaction to her was call a plumber. And after she stopped laughing, and he said, no, I'm kidding. Just let me call Mikki. She's in Washington, D.C. Because the plan all along was that we would all be together in the delivery room. But now there was another, now we had 3 people in 3 different states. So I got on a plane. This is funny though. I'm running through the airport in D.C. I suit with my briefcase, and this the porter, I think, was helping me, and he's carrying my luggage, right? And I'm running to get to this plane, and I'm going, I'm having a baby. We have to get on this plane now. And he's going, you need to explain how you're doing this, because my wife would like to know how you can be so skinny. So we get a lot of attention, Anyway, it was great. And then unfortunately, the plane was like the Pony Express. It made a couple of stops along the way. So I'm calling the hospital and checking on her, and they kept saying, nothing's happening. She's fine. And then I got there, and I walk in, and with my luggage and everything, and the lady behind the desk says, have you been calling me from airports all day? And I said, yes. She said, relax. Nothing's happened. The baby hasn't come. She said, give me your luggage. I'll tell you where she is. And then when you come back, do not walk outside alone. Have you ever been here before? I said, no. She said, do not walk outside alone. I know a hotel that will come and pick you up. They'll bring you back and forth, take you anywhere you want to go. Okay, I didn't really quite get what she was trying to tell me, but I guess I can be somewhat innocent and naive sometimes. Anyway, I found her, and I got there, and her boyfriend and his brother were there. They quickly decided they were hungry, so they left. And she said, labor stopped. She said, CJ was waiting for you. And that's who we named him. And she said, so nothing's happening. So why don't you go check into the hotel, change your clothes, call Carl, let him know that you're here, and then come back. I said, okay. All right. So I did. Well, it turns out, I told you earlier, it was a very good hospital, but their clientele wasn't always so good. And so they had me shuttled back and forth, and I got back and labor started like instantly. And I said, okay, let's breathe. You did take those classes, right? And she said, no. I said, okay, well, I did. So let's try it. And, and because I had with my sister a few years before, when my niece was born, I had taken the classes with her. Anyway, so she said, I know I promised natural childbirth, but I want something now for the pain. I said, okay. So the doctor comes in and he says, you don't need anything. Women have been doing this forever, just, and I'm going, what? So I grabbed him. I said, you, outside. And we get outside and he said, who are you? I said, I'm the baby's mother. When was the last baby you had? And I said, you're not allowed back in that room at all. And I went over to the nurse and I said, I don't know her name, but I know there was a woman doctor on this team and who was very, very supportive of what she's trying to do. Can you call her? That lady, the woman doctor, she was thrilled that we called. And she got there within 5 minutes and gave her something for the pain. Women have been doing this forever, but, and then we wound up having a baby. And there's so many little stories in there, but it was, I'll tell you one last story. My life as a realtor is interesting, but we were in Dallas. This is all 1990, this birth happening. In November of 1989, we were in Dallas and we were waiting to go over to a meeting. Okay, so just keep that in the back of your mind. So I'm talking to Sharon about how did this all come about, blah, blah, blah. And she told me about a friend she had gone to see just to try to clear her head because she wanted, about the guy that she was living with. And she said, I'll never forget the day I left Texas. I said, Texas? She said, well, my friend lives in Texas. And she said, I got caught in a traffic jam in front of a pink hotel. My mind is immediately going to where I think this is going. And she says, yeah, the traffic jam was because the Secret Service were there, that the president was there, and Mick Jagger was there. And I said, oh my God. And she said, what? I said, that hotel you got stuck in front of was my hotel. Mick Jagger was checking out at the same time that the Secret Service were trying to get President Bush over to the realtor convention. So it was causing a lot of traffic situations. And I'm looking out the window waiting for that all to end so I could leave to go over to the hotel that the convention was in. And all I kept thinking was, this should be a Daniel Steele movie. This woman's looking out this window, not knowing that her soon-to-be son is in a car stuck in front of that hotel right now. And she said, see that? Even then he was working his way to you. It's spooky and wonderful at the same time.
Oh my goodness. So many nuggets though. And speaking listeners, I want y'all to pay attention. There were so many things that were shared. For one, there's stuff that we know, information, experiences that is valuable to someone. Like we don't even know how valuable it will be when we learn it. Like you learn it and going through that process with your sister. And then here it is, you get to go through that same process and help in the birth of your son. Like that's bananas to think of it. And you would never, even imagine it when you were going through it at the time. But what we do and what we experience, it definitely puts us in position for something amazing later on down the line. And we don't know how big or how small that may be.
I agree. It's like, it's a wonderful life.
Ooh, yes, indeed. And then the other piece was just how valuable connections are. There are so many times that we think, oh, just burn the bridge, just burn the whole thing down, go ahead, move on with life, do this, do that. or we burn the bridge, not realizing that the bridge is giving us support. Sometimes the bridge is us being able to have a reminder that there is a way out, that there is some other options. And so I think that was a very clear description of, what it is that you were saying, because for so many people, they're like, oh, I don't have anybody to support me. I don't have this, I don't have that. But it's not that you don't have it, it's that you may not be paying attention to the bridges that are around you or that are accessible to you. And you never know where that bridge is going to take you. So for her, that bridge took her to being able to find an amazing home for her son. Like, you don't know how far the bridge is going, because it can span across states, as you see. And I think we've learned that now more than ever, especially throughout the pandemic, because what we do and who we meet today can be someone across the world, but we can make something amazing happen.
Exactly. That it is. You don't know. I think that's why It's a Wonderful Life is such a popular movie at Christmas. Mm-hmm. People don't think about it, but one person that you don't even notice it. You don't know you were nice to somebody in a grocery store, what was going on in their lives that day, and maybe your smile turned it around for them. We don't know how we're touching others, or others that are out there on our behalf, and we don't even know about it. So that's why I think people should pay more attention to the law of attraction, because people come into your lives for a reason, a season, or a lifetime. Pay attention to it, because it's all like, I read something just the other day about when somebody asks you to do something, if you can do it, because you don't know, you might be the answer to one of their prayers, and you don't know that you're being used to help that prayer. Pretty exciting.
I love it. Speakeasy, this has been an amazing conversation today, and I'm hoping that you got a few things from it. By all means, if you got to go back, hit the pause button, rewind it, go back and listen again. Share this out with someone who you may think may need this inspiration, because that's what it's all about, each one being able to reach another person. So Mikki, let them know how they can reach out to you if they want more information about what it is that you do, or also how they can find the book.
The book is available everywhere. Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart has the best price. Or they can go to my website. It's Mikki Shepard, Mikki, because people don't want to do that. And then MikkiShepardAuthor.com. And there's some information on there, and it also helps them see where they can buy the book. My goal is to get this book to anybody who's ever thought about adoption, or has thought that maybe that is not for them, or whichever side of it is you would be on, and maybe it'll open somebody's heart. I can change one birth mother, change the whole family, that's what happened for us, and I wish it for everybody.
I love that. Speakeasy podcast listener, listen, you may be the one that's looking for the support, or you may be the one that is the support. I know that my mother, she was a mother that fostered children. She did kinship-care. She did all types of stuff. Mm-hmm. There were always kids at her home, but it was because she knew that the most valuable thing that we can give is love. It's love. It's love in our time. And so she was very big on doing that. So I appreciate you being a guest for the show today. Speakeasy, listen, again, let me know how this episode resonated with you by leaving us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. And until next time, guys, don't forget to press it out. See ya.